We're very privileged to host the Global Summit of First Ladies and Gentlemen for the second year in a row. We had Dr. Aleš Musar last year, and he's here with us again, as well as the First Lady of Suriname, Mrs. Santokhi-Seenacherry. Thank you so much for coming. I'll let Annie introduce the panel in a moment, but before we go into the panel discussion, there's a short presentation from Brand Finance by Artur Bryzghalov, our Associate Director of Place Branding, to tell you a bit more about the role of First Ladies and Gentlemen in shaping a country's soft power. Thank you.
As Konrad rightly mentioned, that the initiative between the First Ladies and Gentlemen platform and Brand Finance started last year. And we had a pleasure of hosting Elena Zelenska as well in its sort of first year. Just before I go into the results will be similar to last year, but what will be quite interesting is to remind everybody about the framework. The framework you're going to see a lot more tomorrow, and that is a global soft power framework. So when we're talking about soft power, we are talking about the perceptions of global audience about different nations. And the way that we measure soft power is quite different to the way that other consultancies might do that. And that's primarily because we measure reputation and influence together. And you might see familiarity at the bottom there. So it is quite an important feature of our questionnaire. If respondent doesn't know anything about the country, we just stop there. We don't let them answer questions. And in this way, we're ensuring that the data we are getting is good quality data. So the index itself constitutes of 3 KPIs and 35 attributes spread across 8 pillars. So what we have done, together with the First Ladies and Gentlemen Initiative, we've done a thought exercise trying to identify what attributes and pillars are responsible or could be assigned to the First Ladies and Gentlemen activities. And after this exercise, we identified 15 attributes in which we are seeing a lot of interaction or initiatives led by First Ladies and Gentlemen. Just a side note, last year in summer we had another session in New York where we tried to also do a bit of a deep dive and try to find individual cases for each of the identified attributes. And an important or interesting feature is that most of the leaders for those initiatives were females, but that's not always the case. So here in the UK, for example, we have Danis Thatcher and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, that have played a prominent role in public life of their leaders. So onto the results. What you're seeing on this chart are the 15 attributes I've identified earlier. And on the inner circle, you're seeing the cumulative result for the last year, and on the outer circle is the result for this year. So there is not much change overall, just an incremental increase. But when it comes to individual attributes, we see that importance of internationally admired leaders has decreased slightly, while importance of friendly, nation being friendly, has increased marginally by 0.5 points. This year, for the first time, we've done a regional segmentation, and the charts here are ordered from the largest to the smallest impact. And we're seeing that in MENA, Middle East and North Africa, the importance is slightly above the global average, while in Asia, the importance of First Ladies and Gentlemen initiatives is slightly below average. And this is quite interesting because that signifies a cultural aspect of how the countries work, how the systems work. For example, in Middle East and North Africa, we are seeing that the role of First Ladies and Gentlemen is much more prominent. They're much more, well, let's say, important within the society because of religious reasons or because of cultural aspects of that nation. While if we talk about the Asia as a region, the countries have been more democratized in a way, the institutions, and there is less highlight of the First Ladies and Gentlemen, but more on their leaders. So this is what we have realized doing this research. And just to conclude, so what we've done was a scenario analysis, and last year we used France, but this year we used Ukraine because it has been on the news recently quite often. So in 2025, Ukraine has received 42 for its global soft power score. But then we asked ourselves, what if there was some sort of negative shock in a country that decreased these attributes performance, these 15 attributes, if they went down by 50%, what would happen to the Ukraine soft power? The result would be that its score would decrease to 41.2, so 0.8% increase, 0.8 points. And in fact, this would lower Ukraine's rank by one rank. On the opposite side, if there was a positive shock in the country, you might imagine then that the score would increase by a similar mirror amount, 0.8. But this won't be enough to increase the country's rank, because the higher up the countries are in the ranking, the more difficult the competition becomes. And just to go to the concluding slide, what we have done, since the topic of the presentation is gender inequality or gender equality, we have mapped the Global Soft Power Index results on the y-axis against the UNDP Gender Inequality Index, and you could clearly see that the more gender inequality there is in a nation, the less the soft power of that nation is. And I think that's quite an interesting finding in itself. And on that note, I'd like to ask Annie Brown, our Valuation Director, to come on stage and introduce the panel.
So as we've just seen, there is a huge role that First Ladies and Gentlemen can play in driving soft power for nations, and I feel very honoured to welcome to the stage the First Lady of Suriname, Mrs. Mellisa Seenacherry, and Dr. Aleš Musar, the First Gentleman of Slovenia.
Thank you.
So, Mrs. Mellisa Santokhi-Seenacherry, apologies, First Lady of Suriname, could you tell us a little bit about, taking into consideration what we've just heard, how high on your agenda is gender equality?
Good afternoon, everyone. Gender equality is not just a priority. It is at the core of everything I do, at the heart of all my initiatives and projects. At the best is that, for me, empowerment is essential for the youth to ensure that they have equal opportunities. But before I go into any details, I would like to share a video on a specific stereotype.
Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl.
My name is Dakota, and I'm 10 years old.
Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Throw like a girl. Fight like a girl. What does it mean to you when I say run like a girl?
It means run fast as you can.
Now throw like a girl.
Aww.
So do you think you just insulted your sister?
No. I mean, yeah, insulted girls, but not my sister.
Is like a girl a good thing?
Actually, I don't know if it's a bad thing or a good thing. It sounds like a bad thing. It sounds like you're trying to humiliate someone.
Thank you. Well, I use this video to highlight the fundamental truth that gender equality starts at home. The values we instill in our children and the biases we fight to break through. And yeah, furthermore, this video illustrates that our girls, speaking for myself as well, are born with a strong sense of self. However, the narrative changes as we grow, because you are very quickly, as this young lady says, you begin to differentiate that there's a difference, and you are pushed into a box basically as not being good enough. And she could feel it. So when we try to...
and that's so important for children, isn't it? I mean, if you tell them they can succeed, they're more likely to succeed. And so by introducing those stereotypes, that really could be quite damaging.
As I said, it starts at home. So when our children act, they basically mirror us. So if they act like this, it's because they have seen or heard us at a certain point, some elder acting that way or saying that. So then they duplicate it, they mirror it. And that's why it's important to know that we do begin at home, because how can we stop insulting girls? That being a girl is basically an insult. It starts at home, and then we move on to the schools and to the communities, and then basically the nation. Beyond these or this specific stereotype and self-perceptions, being a girl faces real and tangible challenges. And one most overlooked and yet very critical aspect is of gender equality is menstrual health and period poverty. Addressing menstrual health is critical for achieving gender equality in education, because as it's a natural process, still we see that worldwide girl face the challenge. They face stigma, they face misinformation, and especially a lack of access to menstrual products. It's a matter of dignity, not just equality. It's just a matter of dignity and breaking through the cycle of poverty, because if they don't have access to menstrual products, that means they miss days at school. And missing days at school is that there's a gap, and then you fall behind. So this creates a cycle. And for me, what's important is that it's such a basic, it's something that's God-given. We all have it, and it's necessary for humanity. But somehow, we don't realize that there is an inconsistency. There is an inequality, because families with girls, compared to families with predominantly boys, they have a heavier load of financial burden, perhaps. And how do we take away the inequality? We start at the basic need, as being humans, being a girl, these challenges, to take away it from the basic, the education, education, that it is not something you should be ashamed of. And it's not only towards our girls, we need to teach our boys as well. And it starts again at home. It's our mothers, our fathers, our brothers and sisters. When we share the awareness, or we create the awareness, is where you will instill the dignity and we would say trots. What does this translate? Pride in our girls to continue and not to see themselves as not enough, but see that what they were born with, that they have a strong sense of self.
It's really encouraging to hear you talk about it this way, obviously so passionately, and talking about doing this from the bottom up and starting from the basics and building that for people wider in society. We do also have another video that we're going to share from another member of the First Ladies and Gentlemen Summit, which is from the First Lady of Malawi, Monica Chakwera. If we could please cue that video.
Greetings from Malawi, the warm heart of Africa. While I deeply regret not being able to join you in person, I'm grateful for the opportunity to share my reflections on the topic that defines the success of modern societies, gender equality. A girl who stays in school transforms not just her future, but the future of her entire nation. A woman with economic power does not just feed her family, she fuels development, innovation, and progress. This is the power of gender equality. We live in a world where progress should know no gender, and opportunity should have no limits. Yet we still see disparities that prevent women and girls from reaching their full potential. Especially here in Africa, and Malawi in particular, the role of first ladies and gentlemen in advancing gender equality is more important than ever. Through soft power diplomacy, we have the ability to influence policies, shift mindsets, and champion causes that ensure equal rights and opportunities for all. As First Lady of Malawi, I've been privileged to witness the transformative power of education and economic empowerment in the lives of women and girls. Through my foundation, Shaping Our Future Foundation, we have provided thousands of secondary school bursaries to vulnerable girls, ensuring they stay in school, complete their education, and pursue their dreams. We have also invested in women's economic empowerment programs, supporting over 1,800 households with resources to start businesses, build financial independence, and support their families. I've seen firsthand how a girl with an education and woman with economic power can break the cycle of poverty, uplift her community, and shape the future of a nation. But challenges remain: cultural norms, economic barriers, and unequal access to opportunities continue to slow progress, not only in Malawi, but around the world. This is why we must use our collective influence to accelerate change, amplify women's voices, and create systems that work for everyone. To my fellow First Ladies and gentlemen, our roles extend beyond formality. We are bridge builders, advocates, and catalysts for transformation. Our soft power is the force that can shape nations, uplift communities, and inspire future generations. Let us continue to speak boldly, act decisively, and lead with purpose. Gender equality is not just a goal, it is the key to a just, peaceful, and prosperous world. I thank you.
And of course, I think it's probably not lost on anyone in the audience that first, ladies and gentlemen, as Artur was highlighting, the majority of the members of that summit are first ladies. And perhaps it's the most poignant example and a very visible example of what is the result of a series of gender inequalities and how that ultimately transpires. So I'm really excited to be able to hear from Dr. Musar about, from your perspective. So if you could please tell us, Dr. Musar, how did gender equality issues look differently for a first gentleman versus a first lady?
Thank you. This is a really very good question, because women, being the primary victims of gender inequality, are sometimes perceived as the ones who have to fight for the equality. And the notion that the ladies should fight gender stereotypes is in itself a gender stereotype. It is a society problem, not a women's problem. And what we are all fighting for is one war for gender equality. But we might be fighting it on slightly different battlefields. As you mentioned, yes, there are very few first gentlemen in the world. Last year I was guessing and I said 10 to 15, and I'm really uncomfortable when it comes to guessing, so I checked. It's 11 at this moment. And in March it will be 11 again, because we will lose one and gain another one. So really, not that many. What first ladies are experiencing, and this is something what last year the First Lady of Iceland, Eliza Reid, described as in a very strong statement which she published in the New York Times, that first ladies are not some sort of decorative accessory to the president. We are getting kind of a mirror image of stereotypes. The basic one being something which refers to what Mellisa said, that term girl is a kind of an insult. In our case, term first lady is sometimes used as an insult, and you would expect that from illiberal part of the media, for example, but it happens also to for example, in my own country, to a weekly which is very proud of its liberal credentials, that when they want to criticize what I'm doing, or indirectly what my wife is doing, that I'm called the First Lady, which is kind of ridiculous, knowing and admiring so many First Ladies with whom I'm working with. It is true, though, that what the First Lady of Malawi mentioned, that there are cultural norms in societies, and some First Gentlemen from more conservative societies have a true problem of identity. The main notion is that they should not be in that position in the first place. So their activities might be limited because of that. I'm lucky enough to come from a liberal society, and if you look at the statistics, almost half of First Gentlemen are coming from Europe at the moment. But if you analyze what is really behind that, liberal or illiberal, the assault is not on First Gentlemen being in the position of a lady, but on our spouses being in the position of the president. Mm-hmm. So whenever someone says that this being the spouse is really a job for ladies, he or she is indirectly saying that being the president is a job for men. Mm-hmm. The number of First Gentlemen is just a reflection of the low number of the heads of state, of female heads of state.
So what can First Ladies and Gentlemen do personally to contribute towards greater gender equality? Mellisa, perhaps.
Okay, so for me, I have my own initiatives where I execute them in partnership, because doing it alone, depending on your country, the Office of the First Lady doesn't get a budget from the government. So whatever you want to do and you're passionate about anything, for example, gender equality, and you want to take action, you need partners. So looking for partners, sharing the values, and in this sense, with regards to gender equality and period poverty, is that what I'm trying to get the message across is that it's a human right. Access to menstrual products is a human right, and to get that message across. And of course, I've been since 2023 active trying to get not only the message out there, but actually having the government policy in place to have it accessible for every woman, not only girls, but the entire nation. It should be free. So that's where I'm trying to head towards and looking for partnerships.
Dr. Musar?
As the research of Brand Finance has showed, and I'm really very grateful for that, because now we can base our activities on science, on real data, is that what we are doing has impact. So I would say that our strength in fighting gender inequality is in personal example. And that can be done in many different ways. One of those ways is to build on your own expertise. My experience of cooperating with several First Ladies around Europe and the world is that and gentlemen, sorry, I shouldn't be forgetting that, but there are really very few of us, is that they're accomplished people with careers, successful careers, with expertise, with knowledge. And building on that knowledge can really show that, again, the First Ladies or gentlemen are not some sort of accessories, but persons in their own rights who can influence certain areas, education being the most obvious, because this is where everything starts. But if I give an example of, for example, First Lady of Croatia, Sanja Music-Milanovic, she's a doctor. She's been studying healthy lifestyle of children for 30 years. And in 2023, she convened a summit on fighting childhood obesity. And it is our role, of the other First Ladies and Gentlemen, to support that. To bring this issue, which is an important issue in many countries, and not just in European countries, this is really an issue around the world, to bring it to the fore, to bring it to attention, to influence solutions for that problem, and all that based on real expertise of one First Lady. First Lady of Ukraine, for example, Olena Zelenska, was a very successful producer. And I hope Alexandra, who is working with her, will not take offense, but I think that Olena is not really very comfortable appearing in public. She's a reserved person, but she's really very successful in presenting the needs of Ukraine to the world. What we can do is, I mean, what the others can do is support that. And this really is a role of the network, but we might be speaking about that a bit later. There is, however, another approach to fight gender inequality, and that is heads-on, going against that. And I have an illustration to that, if I may ask, for a short video.
Hello. In 2 days I will be traveling. And as a present, I intend to bring with me putica. This is probably the most typical Slovenian pastry. Basically, it's a rolled cake with different fillings. Today, we are making the most traditional one, with walnuts and raisins. I can find my way in the kitchen, but when it comes to serious cooking or baking, I turn to my friend Mateusz. But in fact, we are making the putica on the recipe of his mother, Katja. Mateusz and I started studying chemistry about 40 years ago, and chemists who don't have a laboratory often turn to kitchen. They're really basically the same processes. Let's see what happens today. Our putica is ready. This is a very Slovenian present. It is so traditional that it's even inscribed in the list of Slovenian cultural heritage. The only thing to do is pack it and bring it to our friends.
So, I think it's quite obvious what I did here. I blatantly abused the notion that the kitchen is the place for women. And this is one way of doing it, going against the general assigned role, and, you know, I can bake, why not?
What I'm hearing is that for First Ladies and Gentlemen to make an impact, you really have to just take initiative and do it yourself. I mean, as you were talking about, Mellisa, you don't have a budget that you can work with. You have to make this impact yourself, and whether that be through baking a cake or collaborating with your peers, it really is a group of very driven people. And I'm keen to hear a bit more about how you support each other in the summit, and particularly on this note around gender equality, is there a process of learning and educating each other and borrowing from each other? These other go-getters, First Ladies and Gentlemen, is really how I'm starting to understand you all. Do you have that sort of collaboration?
I think when we come together is that we share our best practices, lessons learned, and that helps us, you know, the learning curve to have, when we want to do something, also get ideas and how to actually go about it. Because you can have an idea, but you don't know actually how to execute it, and see how perhaps another, as my colleague here, Aleš, or somebody else, how they went about and they actually achieved success is something that you can follow and you can get ideas from. And we've had sessions where we actively have a team, like you could choose, for example, gender equality, and how the different countries went about to bring about change in. And it started small, it started in a community, and then it grew and grew and grew and it went nationwide. So we take inspiration from each other, is my experience.
Dr. Aleš?
Yeah, I have practical experience with what I started to speak before in Croatian First Lady. And that meeting in Zagreb, in the capital of Croatia, there was a lot of media coverage, which is expected and which certainly brought that issue of childhood obesity to the fore. But a large part of that coverage was saying that the First Lady of Croatia had a beautiful violet dress, if I remember correctly, and she was very favorable being compared with the Queen of Spain, Letizia, who was also present there in light blue or something. While it was favorable, it was basically insulting, I mean, to the serious content which the First Lady of Croatia is bringing. And what one can do to support that activity is, first, it's an important activity. In Slovenia, I transferred it to the National Institute of Public Health, and now we are supporting each other, in fact. But last year, when there was a conference at the National Institute of Public Health, I invited the First Lady of Croatia, not as the First Lady, although she is always the First Lady, but as an expert. And in just, I think, 5 days, re-elected Croatian president had made the first visit abroad to Slovenia. His wife will come with him. And the program which we have prepared is going to the pediatric hospital and having there a very expert report on the activities which she initiated. Not doing the stereotype First Lady stuff, but doing something what is really her strong expertise. Another example would be with the First Lady of Ukraine. Last year, I invited her to attend annual meeting of a humanitarian organization of the advisory board, where the countries, donor countries are present, to present the humanitarian needs of Ukraine firsthand. This is something what we can do to support each other's activities, as examples.
Yeah, as you say, amplifying those messages and supporting each other and taking inspiration from each other as well. And I think we have now also another video, multimedia session. This is our last video from the First Lady of Serbia, Tamara Vucic, and her thoughts on this topic.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin by extending warm greetings from Belgrade and expressing my gratitude for the opportunity to address you in this way. I often rely on the profound thoughts of great minds whose words, so concise and seemingly simple, manage to convey profound truths. Today, we speak of one such truth, eloquently captured by one of the greatest Serbian poets and diplomats, Jovan Dučić. He wrote, "Men are brave in the face of death and women in the face of life. Men before another man and women before the entirety of fate." I deeply believe that understanding that the balance of our world relies precisely on these two principles, the masculine and the feminine, neither of which is more important nor superior to the other, is a measure of a society's civilizational progress. That is why I take pride in the fact that gender equality in Serbia today is demonstrated through concrete and visible examples. Today, in Serbia, the President of the National Assembly is a woman, the Prime Minister of the provincial government is a woman, the Governor of the National Bank is a woman, and nearly 40% of the ministers in the government and members of the National Assembly are women. When it comes to the private sector, 33% of businesses in Serbia are owned by women. Remarkably, 17.2% of all startups in Serbia were founded by women, compared to the European average of 13%. Among these women, 16% hold a doctorate, which is more than twice the percentage compared to men. However, in my opinion, the topic we are discussing today, particularly in the context of soft power, should not be reduced to merely a bureaucratic framework of gender equality or a demonstration of women's strength. It is much more than that. The way women and men think is fundamentally different, and if we fail to include more women in creative processes and decision-making, we deprive ourselves of an entire universe, uniquely feminine perspective on the world. Research shows that the best results are achieved through synergy, through mixed gender teams. I have had the opportunity to speak on this topic many times in different parts of the world, and each time it has been a chance to hear and learn something new. On one such occasion, I was struck by the phrasing that this is an era of re-empowering women rather than merely empowering, because women, as mothers and creators of life, naturally possess power. On another occasion, a gentleman remarked that we make a great mistake when we say behind every successful man stands a successful woman. We often say this, both men and women alike, as though it is the ultimate compliment to woman. Beside, he told me, beside every successful man stands a successful woman, and vice versa. We are gradually changing the lens through which we view the world and everything around us. Some ideas and perspectives have become so ingrained that we no longer question them, yet we should question them frequently and even deliberately, so that we can restore the natural balance humanity so desperately needs. In the end, it matters little which gender you are if your intentions are guided by goodness, your path is pure and paved with knowledge, and your goals are clear and noble. The world would be a wonderful place if this ethos permeated every use of soft power, or in fact, any kind of power.
I love that line about re-empowering women, not empowering women. And also, I think you can really tell that she takes inspiration from a whole variety of people, whether it be famous poets from her country or whether it be colleagues that she didn't mention where, but perhaps that was a colleague from the Summit of First Ladies and Gentlemen that made that really key point about it's besides each other that leaders thrive rather than one in front of the other. Now, I think for everybody in the audience, they'd probably love to hear a bit more about the summit and how it's impacted you both personally. So could you share a little bit about your personal experience and how being a member of the Summit of First Ladies and Gentlemen has inspired and impacted you?
So for me, as the chair of the ASCLAN, that's the Spouses of the Caribbean Leaders Action Network, I work alongside First Ladies across the Caribbean. And we also focus on a number of pillars, being gender equality, maternal and child health, basically the betterment and well-being of all children. With the summit, I think because we already do it from our country to our region and then moving it to and expanding it, because then you go across the ocean and you have 4 more colleagues and doing different things and you get inspired, as I said. So it's about expanding the work and expanding the influence and of course sharing the best practices. That's what it is for me.
I've been in the position of the first gentleman for 2 years only, and I'm hearing from more experienced ones, like Tamara Vucic, for example, that in the recent years the nature of activities has changed, that there is more based on the expertise and there is more collaboration. And I think one of the most important mechanisms to achieve that is really the Summit of First Ladies and Gentlemen initiated by Olena Zelenska. Without that, or without meetings which involve a larger number of First Ladies and Gentlemen, we would not really have an opportunities to meet. And even when we do meet in some sort of an official visit, you know, Mellisa, that it's probably 1 hour or 2 hours of direct contact and you find out something or not. In a meeting which is aimed at resolving a specific question, there is more time to know each other, and there is more time to find out where we can support each other. So this was really invaluable and is invaluable. And in fact, in those 2 years, I noticed that the summit as an event is growing into a network. And that, I think, is probably the best achievement of the summit.
And it feels like an obvious win for gender equality to be a unified goal of the summit. Are there any other key areas that you feel there's a real strong tie that all of the members of the summit are really committed to? What are the key areas that you discuss at these summits alongside gender equality?
Well, it's not specifically at the summit, but we do have activities. The one was in September, I think, at the UN building, where we got to share the initiatives that we champion. And for me, I got to share my work that I do on mental health, the programs that I have effectuated from start of 2020. It's my first term as a First Lady, but in 4.5 years, we've seen successes. So it's with pride that we share then the information where we started and where we got. For example, I start at the base, like in the basics. When we want to change the way we think about it, we need to start at the home. But then if the home doesn't have a space where you can talk about emotions, for instance, then I create one and I broadcast it nationally. We create a safe space with child psychologists and other specialists and of course the youth, and they get an opportunity to talk about whatever subject or anything that is troubling them. And I've seen that we, through the years, 4.5 years, is a very short time, but we've broken through quite a few taboos. So now we're in the process of having a university collect the data on this. So it starts with something small. You have an idea. You are persistent because that's key. I started in 2020 with, for example, the menstrual project in 2023, and only now am I actually getting far to find, the funding. It starts somewhere, and you have to be persistent and consistent to actually get somewhere. So for me, it's when you share that you don't give up. You have this idea, you're passionate about it. Be consistent, and you could start in a very simple manner. It doesn't need to be elaborate and all out there. It starts with a small group. And for my specific program, I call it How Do We Feel? Hoe wij ons voelen in Dutch. And this has grown because everybody talks about mental health nowadays. And the reason why it was so essential, Suriname being a very small population, we will always rank in the top 5 when it comes to suicide. So you can understand there's a cultural taboo to talk about emotions, so they don't do it at home. So I needed to create a safe space where they could do that. And it has grown, it's so popular, and it's become so common to talk about emotions that we're moving and we're progressing it, because when you know your emotions and you can identify your emotions, then you could move on to regulating your emotions. So we have an end goal where we want to be, but you need to start at the basics. And so I have another program I call Me Time, is where we teach young ones mindful breathing exercise. Is when they experience the world through their devices, they are very disconnected. We see the youth are very disconnected. So those social skills that they're supposed to already have that, you see that it takes longer for them nowadays to build those skills. So it's to bridge that, is to help them let go of the devices and to actually calm down, to create calm them down, peace in the brain. And these are very small tools. It comes down to what my messages and what I've been trying to do in my time as a First Lady is to give them the tools that they can build resilience and a better future.
Again, it's determination, challenging cultural norms, and starting from a basis of education.
Yes.
Dr. Musar, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, perhaps a slightly different perspective on what we can learn from each other, and that is how to do a job of First Lady or gentleman. Because this is also what we share. I mean, and it might be surprising on the first glance that the position is really not defined, not even in the countries with very long traditions, not even in the countries with very large budgets, for that matter. Generally, I don't think we really have budget. We are just
No,
relying
I
on the
don't.
president's office. That's common experience. But the thing is, it's not that surprising because we are not elected. We are there because of our spouses, and we have to be aware of that. Our role is supportive role. We can stand beside in personal relations, but when it comes to official role, we are the background. And whatever we do in our country or internationally is a support or a complementary activity to our spouses, to the presidents, which of course are the policies of our countries. We are in service of our countries, but we are behind that position. And it was kind of reassuring to find out that it's a gray zone everywhere. And it's logical that it's a gray zone because a president, when he or she is elected, has a list of duties and powers. As the first lady or gentleman, you first have a choice whether to do something or not to do anything. Only if you decide to do something, then you face the limits and you find out that you're really not free.
So a really fine balance to play.
And this is something what we share between us to really understand our own positions.
As for in my experiences, that even though we come from different parts of the world, and that when we meet and we talk about our challenges and the issues, it's to its core, it's the same. It's the same. We have the same challenges. So it doesn't matter where you come from, where you're on this globe. To its core, they're the same challenges, either in a different phase or not. And then of support, of course, we try to keep each other motivated, of course, because you cannot give up. And there is a choice, I would say, but not really a choice. I believe if you are a part of your nation, you're a part of your community, and you see these challenges, and you have a platform. Because I myself I'm by profession a lawyer, so I was really focused on my job and career. And then you were thrown into this, and you're basically overnight you're the mother of a nation. You just had to stand still and figure out how would you go about doing it for your own kid. I don't have kids of my own, so the children are my children. So basically that's how I approached it.
Amazing. It's been amazing hearing from you both, and it's such a fantastic initiative, the Summit of First Ladies and Gentlemen. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.